listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast with Johnny Slopes
top 3 to 5 pick next year.
and Camilla.
For the value you could have gotten at Ryan at.
I almost had 5,000 yards, but no, you don't want me. What you're saying is Wayne Gallman is the Dustin Funches of running backs?
I guess you could say that. I guess you can put me down as a for saying that.
We now bring you to the Fifth Down.
What is up, Fifth Downers? You are listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, K-Mill.
Hey.
Yes, today we're going to be doing our Week 7 waiver wire show. Lots of injuries that have happened. A lot have happened this weekend. K-Mill, what can you give us a little breakdown of what was your initial thoughts after this weekend?
Man, the injuries are getting just bad. I mean, talk about the number one, pretty much consensus quarterback this year. He went down. I mean, it seems like every week we're getting a bona fide star getting injured and possibly for the entire season. It's crazy. And the other thing that was crazy was watching that Jags game. Was Leonard Fournette almost? I thought he was for sure had a torn ACL. The way that he went down, that non-contact injury was so nasty.
They called it a leg injury.
Yeah,
he did look awkward though.
Yeah, apparently it was his ankle, but it didn't look like his knee, and it was non-contact. And I was like, oh, another bright star.
Yeah, I noticed though the Lions they almost look like a team that is starting to just give up. It looks like Matthew Stafford is just getting sick of his getting pummeled every time he drops back, and they're starting to really fall apart.
That was an exciting game to watch. That was really wild.
They almost made the comeback, but Stafford was, I think, awful in that game. No credit to him though. I mean, a lot of it really wasn't his fault that he kept getting fumbling the ball. His line was terrible, but I mean, they had a big day.
Yeah, that was a shootout, man. It was amazing. Mark Ingram had a great game.
Yeah, and you'd figured that Theo Riddick would get more play in that one because of the game script, but it just seemed like that was his ceiling at this point. But I think with this Golden Tate injury, he's going to be out for multiple weeks with the shoulder injury. Marvin Jones, he's all right, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to get the kind of work that Golden Tate would get. He's probably still going to get funneled a lot of targets, but you got to think that they might try to use Theo Riddick a little bit like Golden Tate in the same area of the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he'll be used more as a check down than anything, but I do think that his usage will go up. When any injury happens to the passing game, I think that the passing down back is going to get some good usage out of him.
Yeah, you got to think they like to use Golden Tate around the line of scrimmage, and that's kind of where Theo Riddick wins too. So I think that they'll probably try to utilize him more. Theo Riddick right now, he's only 42% owned in Yahoo leagues. People have been dropping him because he's been underperforming, but I think his time has come to where he's going to start getting more production.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yep. You touched on a little bit of the star going down. Aaron Rodgers, he broke his collarbone. He's likely out for the season. I think I heard something about him needing surgery.
Yeah, he's going to get surgery. They confirmed today that he's getting surgery.
Yeah. As soon as I seen him go down, I was like, wow, that's exactly the same angle that I went down when I got an injury, and I knew he was going to be out. And this is not the first time he's broken a collarbone, so it's not surprising that he needs surgery.
Yeah, what is surprising, though, is the last time that he broke his collarbone, he didn't get surgery, and he missed, I think, about 7 weeks, and then he came back. So it's interesting to me that he elected to go for surgery because this could potentially, with surgery, end up being a season ender for him.
Yeah, I mean, now let's look at the outlook of the rest of this Green Bay offense. I mean, Brett Hundley, he didn't really look awful. I mean, he didn't look great by any means, but it was again. He got thrusted into a game unexpectedly against a tough defense. I think that we will see some games where he'll look competent. I don't necessarily think that Green Bay is completely done in terms of the playoff picture, but in terms of being a contender, they're not a contender anymore.
Yeah, no way.
It's a big knock across all the positional players across the board.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think that Brett Hundley, everybody was like, "Oh God, this is going to be bad." I don't think that he'll be that bad. I mean, you got to think the Vikings defense is a tough matchup for anybody. Even Aaron Rodgers would have had a tough time against them, and but yeah, honestly, this is a big downgrade for everybody. I think if you're a Jordy Nelson owner, I think that you're quivering in your boots right now.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay already is a team that's been struggling to run the ball, and they're going to have to be able to rely on the run even more now with a backup quarterback. So, I mean, you got to look for guys like Ty Montgomery and Aaron Jones to step up. He still has some nice targets to throw to. I mean, I guess we don't really have a whole lot to go on this guy, but we can look at what he did against Minnesota because Aaron Rodgers went down early in that game. So we can look at where the ball was going when Brett Hundley was in the game. It was mostly going to Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams. They both had 10 targets apiece. And then the rest of the guys were just fighting for scraps. We had Martellus Bennett had 4 targets. Aaron Jones had 4 targets. Randall Cobb had 3. Ty Montgomery had 3. Allison had 2. I mean, obviously he wasn't really expected to be in there. So we could see probably something different next week. Really want to pay attention to where the ball is going, who he feels comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we're just gonna have to see how that usage goes. I think next week it'll get a little more clarity. But I think if there's any Randall Cobb owners out there, I think this severely downgrades him. I really don't think that he's going to be a factor being the number 3 receiver in this offense.
Yeah, I mean you got to think that he's not going to have quite the volume that Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball a lot. You got to think that's going to come down.
Yeah, I think they're going to only want to throw the ball 20 times a game, and they're going to rely heavily on the run.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think they might throw a little bit more than 20, but yeah, they will rely on the run more. Another injury was Jameis Winston. He left the game with a shoulder injury. They said it was an AC sprain, so it's not like a dislocation or anything like that. They say he may be able to play next week. We've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick come in, and he almost let it come back, where the ball was going with him was spread out more. Evans and both had 8. Humphreys had 7. Djax had 6. So I mean that's nice. It's nice to know that they have that in case he isn't able to go next week. But his plans are to return.
Yeah, I mean he came back negative, so I'm not too concerned about it. I think he'll be back next week.
Yep. And also note that Trevor Siemian he left the game with a shoulder injury, but he did come back. But he didn't look great. Leonard Fournette, he left late with the leg injury, like we said. So that's another one to keep an eye on. Did you, if you're a Leonard Fournette owner, are you going out and picking up Chris Ivory?
I think he's a good. You definitely. I'm a firm believer in if you have a 3-down back, you want to handcuff him. Now's the time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if they have a clear handcuff, though, that's my disclaimer. Because some of these running backs, it's going to be an awful committee. But guys like Donta Foreman, you want to grab those kind of guys because they have a clear 3-down role if their star gets injured. So
Chris Ivory was getting carries even behind Leonard Fournette, and this past week he had 8 receptions, so he was getting some passing down work as well.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think that I'm conflicted on Chris Ivory because I did like the usage he was getting, but last year he was a complete non-factor, and I don't know if that was because BB was so bad.
He also wasn't healthy either.
What's that?
He wasn't healthy last year either.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, definitely. I think if you're a Leonard Fournette owner, you want to go to Chris Ivory because he was targeted, I think, 9 times in the passing game this past week. Crazy because
caught 8 of them.
Yeah, that never happens. And if he gets that kind of work and he's getting passing down work too, I think that has the semblance of a 3-down role. I think you should grab that guy.
Yeah, he's only 4% owned in Yahoo leagues. So he's basically available in every league. So I think that's a pretty good pickup. For some more injuries, Emmanuel Sanders, he left with an ankle injury. He was having a pretty good game. He's already ruled out for week 7. Benny Fowler, I think, is actually a nice fill-in if you're a Emmanuel Sanders owner. I think that is a nice fill-in. He's only 1% owned. He had 8 targets this past game. He only caught 3 of them, but I think that his skill set is close enough to Emmanuel Sanders to where they'll plug him in as the number 2 and they'll use him in the slot when they are in 3 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, he was pretty good because, at the start of the season, too, he was kind of a vulture for both of the two main receivers in Denver's offense because he caught 2 touchdowns in the early games. And, so he is a factor, and he gets targeted in the red zone by Simeon, so that's another plus.
And you got to think that teams are probably going to be focusing in on Demaryius Thomas, which is going to leave Benny Fowler on the off coverage, and it's going to lead to some good things.
Exactly.
Tyreek Hill, he left with a concussion. The Chiefs' wide receiving corps is decimated with injuries right now because Hill left with a concussion. Albert Wilson was out this past weekend. Chris Conley's out for the year with a ruptured Achilles. I mean, they really don't have a whole lot of receivers available over there.
They got Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, that's not good. You're going to have some backup plan in case you're a Tyreek Hill owner. There's not a whole lot. I really don't know a whole lot else about the Kansas City wide receiver corps, to be honest.
Yeah.
Let's go over to some quarterbacks. Is there some quarterbacks that you're looking to stream for Week 7, Kamo?
I haven't really looked at quarterbacks a whole lot, and I didn't really notice anything. But I think a guy that you probably could target that had a lot of promise was C.J. Beathard. He came in relief, and he did a pretty good job. So I think he's on my radar now. But other than that, it's looking pretty bare for like actual streaming options. I mean,
you could. I know Buffalo doesn't really have like a really good offense, but they do play Tampa Bay at home this week. Tyrod Taylor's 37% owned. I think that maybe if you're a guy that you're a really big believer in Deshaun Watson and you've been riding him, and he's on a bye week, you could plug in Tyrod Taylor for this week, and then Deshaun Watson, the Texans, they play Seattle next week. You can also use Tyrod Taylor next week because he plays Oakland.
Yeah, I think he's the most sensible option if he's out there in your league, definitely.
Because you could have Eli Manning out there. He's 50% owned, but he plays Seattle, so that's no go. You got Andy Dalton. He's going on the road against Pittsburgh, so I don't really like that one. You got Trevor Siemian going on the road against the Chargers. I don't like that one. If you're gutsy, I guess you can go with Jay Cutler. He's at home against the Jets, but the Jets, they shut the Dolphins down last time they played.
I guess if you're really gutsy, you could play a guy like Beebe. I mean, he's playing Indianapolis, but I'm not that gutsy. I'm looking for all other options. I guess if you're really, really gutsy, you could do that. I
think though that if you are gutsy, that is a great play because Indianapolis, they do tend to give it up to the air. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job against Tennessee right now, but Mariota is hobbled up. But here's some of the matchups that Indianapolis has faced so far this year. They let Jared Goff 306 yards, a touchdown. Carson Palmer had 332 yards, a touchdown. He did throw an interception. Kaiser had his best game against him, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bet he did throw 3 interceptions. Russell Wilson had 295 yards, 2 touchdowns. And last week, Brian Hoyer had 2 weeks ago, Brian Hoyer had 353 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, they've been giving it up to the quarterback. So, I mean, if you really are gutsy, I think Blake Bortles isn't a bad call at all.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, there's not a whole lot out there. I don't know if you can really trust Brett Hundley going against the Saints. It'll be his first start. I wouldn't really go down that route. What about for deep? Maybe this is deeper leagues, like 2 quarterback leagues. Hogan, Cleveland's quarterback, he's going at home against Tennessee.
I think in 2 quarterback leagues, if you're in a buy pinch, I think I could see it happening. I mean, that's not a bad matchup by any means.
Yep. I want to, just because there's going to be a lot of buys week 8 and week 9, I want to do a little bit of foreshadowing into week 8. Another one, if you want to pick up, he's probably going to be widely available too, is Andy Dalton. Week 8, he plays the Colts. If you want to pick up your week 8 replacement now ahead of the rush, I think that would be a great idea. Another rated one, Case Keenum at home against Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's if you want to look ahead in week 8. All right. Let's go over to the running back position. What do you do with Jonathan Stewart right now? He's 54% owned. Are you dropping him at this point, or are you just putting him in the doghouse?
Yeah, I mean, he's just unstartable at this point. I think even for a bye week fill-in, he's nearly unstartable. It's that to that point.
Yeah, I mean he's got 26 carries for 17 yards the past 2 weeks. So I mean, there's no way you can really thrust him in your line. He's borderline droppable in my opinion. If I had him, I'd probably just put him in the doghouse for right now and wait for the things to get right. Their offensive line's a little bit banged up, so I mean I wouldn't make any hasty decisions to drop him right now, but I could totally understand if you did.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think he had he had negative points in our Yahoo league, and I think that was he had he carried for negative yards. I mean, that's just that's
8 carries, negative 4 yards.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great.
What about Latavius Murray? He's 49% owned. Are you dropping him? He's got 27 carries the past 2 weeks, but only for 59 yards.
Yeah, you have to drop him. There's just no value. Jerick McKinnon has a stranglehold on that job now.
I mean, it's really bad when even they gave him a goal line carry, he failed, and they said, you know what, fuck this guy. And 2 plays later, they gave it to McKinnon, and he punched it in.
Yeah, I know. That's just you have absolutely no value now. Now you not even. You don't even have with him, you're open for that goal line plunge, and not even that will work. So it's he's worthless.
Marlon Mack, 47% owned. I think that's definitely a decent bench stash in case he earns a bigger role. I haven't seen a whole lot of him in this game though.
Yeah, he's been pretty quiet.
Let's talk the Washington backfield. We got Rob Kelly at 44%, and you got Samaje Perine at 36%. Rob Kelly's been injured, but I think that he will probably be back this week, and it looks like I think he'll end up taking the lead role because Samaje Perine hasn't really done a whole lot with it. On the season, he only has 166 yards on 55 carries. That's 3 yards a carry. That's just not going to cut it. Rob Kelly, he has 131 yards and only 29 carries. A lot better. I think he's going to end up walking away with the starting job. So Rob Kelly is the pickup if he's available in your league. He's owned in 44%, so he's still available in some of those leagues out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like he's totally gone. I agree with you. I think that Samaje Perine, he's had the opportunity to do it and he hasn't seized it yet. So I think that they're going to go with the right call and go with Kelly.
Yeah. Everyone was like, oh, Elijah McGuire, he's the pickup. He's going to run away with the job. And then he ends up getting out-touched by Matt Forte. Matt Forte had 8 targets. Elijah McGuire is 37% owned. Matt Forte is 21% owned. It does look like Bilal Powell has a chance to come back, though, this week, making both of them useless. Even if not, I think that they're still not very good options because they're playing for the Jets.
Yeah, I just think that you just don't want to touch that situation. It still hasn't even figured itself out. I'm sure that if Bilal Powell comes back this week, we still don't even know if he's going to be the starter or not. Because the Jets have this weird obsession with using Matt Forte, even though they know that if they use Bilal Powell the right way in a 3-down role,
yeah, I think that Bilal Powell is probably the best option. I think that McGuire doesn't really provide a whole lot as far as receiving, so that he could probably be the change of pace. And then Matt Forte, he's just gonna get it there every once in a while, And,
yeah.
Let's go to the Giants backfield. Did Orleans Darkwa just win the job last night?
Yeah, I think you have to say that. 117 yards and by far the best performance anywhere.
20 carries. Do you think that had a lot to do with the game script, though?
It did, but I'm just saying, against a Denver defense that hadn't allowed anywhere close to that all season, I think that he is the starter now.
I've always liked him.
Yeah, I have too, and I just think that he never really got a fair shake. So he's definitely on my radar. And, the other thing too is, you have to realize this is going to be pretty much a run-heavy scheme. It's going to be Evan Ingram in the passing game, and then Sterling Shepard when he comes back. But I think they're gonna keep leaning on the run here.
If you need a running back, is he the back to get this week?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's the only one that you could really make an argument that could see RB2 numbers, in the foreseeable future.
He's 90. He's available in 90% of Yahoo leagues. So it's gonna be a I don't know. You're gonna want to pick him up.
You're gonna want to pick him. Up. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wayne Gallman, he still had 9 carries, but he didn't do a whole lot with them. Orleans Darkwa was clearly the more effective back. So, I mean, definitely he's the back you want in that backfield. Alex Collins, he's 31% owned in Baltimore. He's been averaging 6.4 yards a carry out on the season. He's not really involved, though, in the passing game, and I feel like he's touchdown dependent, which means he's going to have to get some goal line carries, and he hasn't been getting really those. That's been Buck Allen. So he's still a really hard start for me.
Yeah, same here. I really think that there's better options out there in most leagues. I mean, maybe in the most pinchiest of bye-week pinches, you could maybe do it, but
I do think, though, that Alex Collins is just going to cut into Buck Allen's value, though. I think that the more Baltimore's starting to realize, wow, this guy's really good between the tackles. Let's keep giving this guy the ball every once in a while. He busts some big runs. Maybe he just ends up getting a lot of carries on first and second down,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if anything, that just hurts Buck Allen.
Exactly.
And we already touched on Chris Ivory. Is it time to start taking Dion Lewis seriously as a fantasy asset?
Oh, man, I thought of that too, and I really thought of giving him an ad this week, but it's just like, to me, it's like, okay, man, this backfield is still kind of a muddled mess. So I know that, Gillislee fumbled, and I know he was in Bill Belichick's doghouse, but he also came back in the game and resumed his role. So I think that he's still in the mix. You got a guy like Rex Burkhead who's going to resume practicing, and then you got Dion Lewis, and you have James White who's going to be perennially involved in the passing down work. But, I think that he could be worth an ad in like 12-team leagues. I can see it.
Hit 2 touchdowns in the past 3 games. He actually had more carries than Mike Gillislee this past weekend. He had 11 carries to Mike Gillislee's 10, and he got a goal line carry that he converted into a touchdown. So, I mean, it's your guess is about as good as mine.
Yeah.
Is there any other running backs that you want to mention? I think we covered a lot of them.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, unless you're diving deep for handcuffs. And like we said, Chris Ivory, I think if you're a Fournette owner, you're going to want him. Other than that, though, it's kind of just a mess.
Yeah. Let's go over to the wide receivers. I know we already touched on it a little bit. I want to get a little bit further in depth with Marvin Jones. He may not be available in your leagues, though. He's available in 45% of Yahoo leagues, and past 2 games he's had 22 targets, and 12 of those were catches. He had a 96-yard game this past weekend with a touchdown, and the past weekend